Hello everyone, I am here with my Peeps family tree. I was able to go quite far back through talking to two to three different relatives that were able to give me some information. My family tree will start with me. Um, my heritage is Pennsylvania Dutch, Irish, and Italian. Pennsylvania Dutch, for those of you that might not know, it's basically German, but as I found out, there's also in this area of Pennsylvania, Lancaster County, which a lot of people know as Amish country. There was German, French, and some English settlers that settled in that area, or maybe immigrants would be a better term because it happened after the colonization of America. Anyway, my education level, I currently hold two bachelor's degrees, and I am going to be finishing up my master's at the end of May. I grew up and was born in New Jersey, have resided primarily in Georgia for the past 10 years with some movement. I was born in 1984. Currently, I'm a teacher, and previous to that, I was an YMCA program director. My parents were Doreen Teasdale Ranck, Teasdale being the maiden name, and Edward Ranck. My mother was a homemaker, went back to school to get her bachelor's in elementary education, taught for 3 years in a Catholic school after that. Had a lot of difficulty getting into the public schools. At this time when she was trying to find employment, and not much has changed. The New Jersey teaching market is pretty flooded. There's been a little bit of movement with some of the changes that have been implemented primarily by Chris Christie has made some room in the teaching market. But at the time, she felt like she did experience a lot of age discrimination. And just from talking to different people who teach in New Jersey, there probably is some truth to that. And I just thought that was something to bring up just because of the nature of this class. Her heritage was Irish and Pennsylvania Dutch. She lived her life and is still living in New Jersey, has 3 siblings, and was born in '61. My dad received a high school diploma and went on to be a roofing and siding contractor, had 6 siblings, lived and is still living in New Jersey, and is Italian and Pennsylvania Dutch, and was born in 1960. My mother's parents, my grandparents, were Constance Hallman Teasdale and Patrick Teasdale. I have here that my grandmother earned her bachelor's in education. She was a teacher. She was a Catholic school teacher. I can't say with confidence that at this time, which I guess would have been really in the 60s because my mom was the oldest, the 50s, 60s. I can't say with confidence that a Catholic school would have necessarily required a bachelor's in education, and I didn't have anybody to confirm her education level. I'm just kind of assuming. But after she taught, she continued to work for the Catholic Church, the Diocese of Camden, just not as a teacher role. She lived in southern New Jersey as well. All of my family is in southern New Jersey, in a suburb of Philadelphia. She was Irish and Pennsylvania Dutch, had 3 siblings. 2 are still living, and I was able to speak with one of them to get some of the information for the next generations, and she was born in '32. My grandfather was educated up through 8th grade, and then he continued to work on a pig farm. Once that went out of business, he was a sanitation worker for the city of Philadelphia. But primarily resided in New Jersey, was Irish, had 4 siblings, served in Desert Storm, and was born in '31. My grandmother's parents were Margaret McGuire Hallman and David Barrett Hallman. Everyone called him Barrett, but I did find out through speaking with relatives and looking at family trees that his first name was actually David, which I didn't know until doing this project. My great-grandmother was born in Maryland, but lived in New Jersey, raised her children in New Jersey, was a homemaker, was born in 1910, had 2 siblings. My great-grandfather was Pennsylvania Dutch, which we know it can be traced German descent. And he was a manager at Campbell's Soup. Their Campbell's Soup headquarters for the longest time was in Camden, New Jersey, which I grew up about 7 minutes outside of Camden. He was born in 1909 and also had 2 siblings. Both of my great-grandparents were living up until, I would say I was in 6th grade. My great-grandmother's parents were Peter McGuire and Mary McGuire. Both of their parents were the first generation from Ireland. They immigrated during the potato famine, so somewhere around 1850. We don't have much information past that for Peter McGuire. My great aunt seems to think that possibly his parents passed after the trip from Ireland to the U.S. Because him and all of his siblings ended up in an orphanage. So we're not exactly sure even how many siblings he had, but we do know that he was a Philadelphia cop. Mary McGuire, she remembered her as being very religious and had 2 siblings and lived in Philadelphia. My great-grandfather's parents were Clyde Hallman, and we can trace his family all the way back to 1775 when they arrived in the U.S. His wife was Madeline Jacobs Hallman. They both lived in Virginia, and they were married in 1905. We don't have any birth dates, but we do have their date of marriage. My grandfather's parents were Ellen Teresa McIntyre and John Teasdale. They were both Irish and lived in the New Jersey area. Ellen's mother was Ellen Kelly, and her father was Patrick Vincent McIntyre. They were Irish, and John Teasdale's parents were John Teasdale and Sarah McMorrison, both Irish, and their parents immigrated from Ireland as well. So it looks like I can go back on both of those grandparent sides to about 6 generations, I guess, actually living here in the U.S. On my dad's side, his parents were Mary Galley Ranck and Luke Ranck Sr. My grandmother on my dad's side also worked for the Diocese of Camden, but as a cook, so definitely have the Catholic influence on both sides of my family. She also went back to school like my mother after her children were grown, and that was for an associate's to become a paralegal. She was born in Italy. She resided in Delaware because that's where her parents came into when they immigrated here, and then, of course, resided in New Jersey for a while. She spoke Italian and English. She solely spoke Italian until she went to school, so she started to learn English as a kindergartner. She had 6 siblings and was born in 1922. Her husband, my grandfather, never actually met. He died young. He was an Army World War II vet. Prior to that, or after returning from the war, I guess, he worked for the U.S. Steel Company. Prior to serving, he also delivered milk. My dad seems to have memories of like back in the day where the milk came in glass bottles to your house. He was born in 1922, so I'm assuming at some point he also delivered milk to convenience stores. We think that he has a high school diploma. My dad seemed to be unsure if he had even achieved that. He had 4 siblings, only spoke English. My grandmother's parents were Angelina Albione and Orazio Galli. Angelina was orphaned in Italy, so she was raised by her aunt and uncle, so we don't have any information on her parents other than they were probably in the Rome, Italy area because that's where she was born. She was born in 1898. Lived in Italy. They immigrated around 1922, and she only spoke Italian and became a U.S. citizen in 1943. Her husband, Orazio, the one sibling that we know of would be his twin. He grew up in Abruzzo, Italy, immigrated with Angelina in 1922, spoke Italian, and became a U.S. citizen in 1941. My aunt has, I guess, a copy or a picture of his paperwork. She called it deportation paperwork. I can't say with confidence that he was necessarily deported. I don't know exactly why they decided to immigrate at that time, but through that photo, they can see that his father's name is listed as Lorenzo Galli, but they didn't have a mother's name listed. So, of course, his residence would be in Italy. My grandfather's parents were Minnie Myers and Guy Ranck. The Myers, Pennsylvania Dutch root is going to be kind of the typical German. Her parents were Amos Myers and Mary Ann Deming Myers. Then when we go on the Ranck side, we can go all the way back to the first generation in America, which would have been in the year 1728. My grandfather's father was Guy Ranck and had 4 siblings. He was born in 1898. And then his father would have been Diller Ranck. In the records, there is no wife listed for Diller. For most of the records, they do have husband and wife information, so we're positing that possibly he was never married. I think that would be an interesting thing during that time. Nonetheless, there's no record of his wife's name. He did have 5 children and 4 siblings. We know that this heritage on this side is probably French, though, and not German. It appears as though the family was French Huguenot. So first they fled from France to German to seek religious asylum, and then they did come over from Germany after that initial flee, and then came to America and Pennsylvania in search of religious freedom. Something that I thought was interesting on that note is most likely then the family was Protestant when they first came over, and then here I am with 2 sides of Catholicism in both, on both sides of the family. So I thought that was interesting. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to listening to all of yours.